Hello everyone, Zoe is here with another video and another guest. As you know, I'm passionate about helping students and immigrants to get familiar with work industry and job demands in Australia, or helping those junior ones to get closer to their dream senior roles. In this video, I'll be talking with Dr. Alex Antic. He has many years experiences in the industry as a quantitative analyst, director in data science, lecturer in research and academia side. Now he works as a head of data science on a research-based project with ANU. If you want to know more, hit the subscribe button and watch the video. Hi Alex, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your information with us.
Thank you, Zoe. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So to start, Alex, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your career journey, please?
Sure. So if we go all the way back to my university studies, I did a double degree in mathematics and computer science. And then I pursued postgraduate studies. So initially it was honours in pure mathematics and then a PhD in applied mathematics. I really enjoyed the application of maths to solve real world problems. And these days that obviously goes hand in hand with computer science. So it was a fantastic way to really learn the necessary skills before going out into the real world to actually start applying all that. So from the technical perspective, that's what I studied and I very much enjoyed that. And then I worked initially early in my career was in financial services. So I worked in a fund of hedge funds, so asset allocation as a portfolio optimization quantitative analyst. And then I moved on to investment banking for almost 6 years. So working as a quantitative analyst in derivatives pricing, so pricing complex financial derivatives. It was around the time of the GFC, so it was really interesting to see how the market had shifted around that time. Pre and post GFC, it was actually
a tough time, isn't it?
Yes, it was. It was very much so. But we did quite well overall here in Australia. I think we weren't as affected as deeply as some other countries. But that was a really great way to hone my skills and really learn how to apply mathematical and statistical modelling at a deep level and do a lot of production level coding to solve some very complex problems. So I really enjoyed that time. I worked with some fantastic people. Then from then I moved on to insurance and managed the team that was specialised in marketing analytics. And we worked with actuarial teams around how to price some insurance products. And that was on the cusp of machine learning becoming a bit more common, moving out of academia and research into the real world. So that's when I first started dabbling in what is known as machine learning these days. But the earlier work was very much related to analytics in a broad sense. And then there was a big shift that occurred after that. I decided to move into the public sector.
Exactly right.
Yeah, which was quite fascinating. Quite a change in terms of applying what I'd learnt over that time and moving into more senior roles and helping, I guess, the federal government in Australia move forward into how do you apply this data science and analytics more broadly to solve some complex problems that they were facing. And I've been working either for government or in close collaboration with federal government in the past 7 years or so. That's and about 2 years ago almost, I moved back into academia. We still very much collaborate with government and industry. And I'm happy to chat more about my current role if you'd like to hear about that as well.
Wow, that's such a broad portfolio. So Alex, one of the questions that many people are interested to know about is about their background. Like for example, someone has computer background, like very data-driven person, but then is interested to get into a health system or finance system, like as a quant in asset management side or something like that. How is that possible?
It comes down to 2 things. First is trying to understand what you want to do in terms of career aspirations. And second, it's really leveraging your transferable skills. So in all the roles I've had, being able to solve complex problems, to do the analytics that define those solutions, and then being able to code them up into systems was something that's common to different industries and domains. So if you're going, as in your example, if you've got a strong computing background and you're interested in applying that to the finance sector, then there's a lot of roles that would be perfectly suited to someone with a background like that, such as a software engineering role, or someone who works as a quantitative developer alongside quantitative analysts who take the models they've developed and embed them into production level systems, for instance. So they may work on some of the data ingestion, less on the model development itself, but working closely with the quants on how do you actually then take that model that's been developed and embed it into a production system that prices those complex financial derivatives and has various software engineering paradigms around it, like testing and deployment at scale. So that there's a lot of natural transition pathways to go from a strong computing background into any analytics role or data science role related to the software engineering side. That's something that happens commonly, and it's I think a fantastic way for software engineers to gain a lot of experience by moving between industries, because you always learn something new from each of those domains.
Yeah. Some people just find it a little bit challenging. Like they're like, because like, for example, because I don't have any health background at all, but then I'm so good in analytics side, how I can prove them in the interview that I am the right person, even though I don't have those kind of like health background in my resume at all. Like that's
sure.
I think.
So in that case, you'd want to show some passion or interest in wanting to learn, say, health or whatever interests you. Like, why would you want to apply your skills into that industry? So you'd want to try and understand what are the strategic goals for that organization or government agency, what are some challenges they're facing, and what interests you to be able to help tackle those problems from a software engineering or data science or analytics space. You'd also want to talk about how you've gone into other industries which you didn't know about to begin with, but how you've used your knowledge that translates to these different areas, and you've been able to acquire domain knowledge by doing a lot of reading, talking to people, and trying to really deeply understand what the organization does, what its strategic goals are, and where you can add value. So showing a passion and aptitude for learning, wanting to work closely with the business and key stakeholders, and just being clear on where you think you can apply your transferable skills to that particular industry. So people understand that if you haven't worked in health before, that, you know, as long as you have the strong tech background and you're going to a primarily tech role, that there shouldn't be any issues with you acquiring the specific domain knowledge, as long as you have an interest in wanting to learn about the business and not just solving tech problems. It's showing that you're, you know, passionate about solving problems, and that the technical component is just one means to do that. That's so right. What you want to get across is that you're there to solve business problems, and your particular tool set is in the tech space, and that's what you will use to try and drive change and make an impact in that domain.
That's true. That's right. So Alex, you are a very kind of like experienced person, and you definitely interviewed a lot of people in your career journey. When you want to interview someone, what qualifications and what skills are really matters? Like which part is the most crucial one from your perspective, that you feel like that candidate is the successful one and you want them to be in your team?
It really depends on the particular role and also the seniority of the role, but I'll talk about some general things that I look for. One of the key ones I look for is someone who's trustworthy and honest. You know, like if they claim to have done something on their CV, I wanted to make sure that's in line with when I speak to them. And I guess some people are surprised sometimes that it can be easy for me to determine if they're exaggerating something or not telling the truth. Like I can quickly tell from their CV where they've worked, what they've studied, how likely they are to have worked on a certain technology or technique. And from a couple of questions, I can quickly determine their depth of understanding in that field. So I encourage people to always be honest. And if you don't know something, or maybe don't know at a deep enough level, like just be honest and say, this is an area I'm interested in, and I'm hoping if you employ me that you'll help me build those skills, because that's something that as an employer I'm always very focused on is looking for those gaps and helping people, you know, strengthen their skills and an understanding of a particular domain or technique. In general, though, if we're talking about analytics roles broadly and say software engineering, so I'm looking at people with really strong quantitative skills, the ability to solve problems, to analyze data, to use analytical techniques, not just machine learning, but more traditional actuarial or statistical or mathematical modeling techniques. So people that are comfortable working with data, interrogating it, asking questions of the data and trying to come up with some hypothesis. So having that science element, scientific process to trying to determine what's going on and why is it happening. I also typically need people that are quite strong from a coding perspective. I'm not too fussed about if they can understand R or Python. I mean, they're pretty standard languages these days. So to me, it's more about how deep do they understand a particular language, even if it's something else, like if they're very strong in C or C++ or Java, then I know that they have the aptitude to pick up R or Python that may be needed for a particular project that we would be working on.
That's right.
So normally I'd like people to have a reasonably deep knowledge in at least one language, and preferably some experience across multiple paradigms such as OO, functional programming, or maybe some scripting tools or SQL, like database query. Like deep knowledge in some of those are fundamental to many different areas.
That's right.
And with many roles these days, especially in production level environments, things like technology and coding in Spark, Scala, distributed platforms is becoming the norm. So that's always very helpful, especially if they're working as software engineers or production level data scientists. That's absolutely paramount. For junior and aspiring data scientists and analysts, it's really a willingness and a passion to learn. I think that's really important. People that are eager to come in and want to learn, want to really understand the business, understand how it works and where they can add value. So not to just focus on the technical side, but what is the business problem we're trying to solve and how can we actually help the business by using some of the techniques and tools that we have at our disposal. Also, in addition to that, it's people that are curious, people that are always asking why, like why something been done like this before, why don't we change it? I think that is really important, not to just accept the status quo, but to challenge me, my peers and their team members, and just to ask, to get into this, somewhat academic discourse about, let's have an open discussion about how things work and how they can work, and then figure out what's feasible, what's a valid approach to take. So I think that's really important. And as people become more senior, I look much more at their communication skills. How can they present the material to senior executives? How can they liaise with key stakeholders, both within and external to the organisation? How do they represent the organisation externally as well? Like if they're going to very high-level meetings or presenting at conferences, how will they present the work they do and make it understandable to people? So there's some of the key things. And for a lot of roles that I manage, not just in academia these days, but even prior to this, many have been very much research focused. I've often needed people with postgraduate qualifications, often with PhDs, either maths, stats, computing, econometrics, actuarial, like people that have a really deep understanding, just to really, I find they find that they're able to tackle some of these problems with a bit less guidance and get down to the essence of a particular problem at a deep level very quickly. Mm-hmm. So for research-specific roles and in competitive environments, it's often good to have some postgraduate qualifications. It is helpful. It's not necessary, but given the environment, it does actually help.
That's right.
So I think that's some of the key things that I tend to look for. Yeah, it's quite a lot, but in this competitive environment, it's become quite important.
Exactly right. It is competitive these days. So, Alex, one more question. What is the difference between data analyst and data scientist?
It's a very good question. It's not always straightforward. So there's different ways we can tackle this. I think one of the easiest ways to answer it is analysts in the broad sense tend to come at a problem more from a descriptive perspective, like using statistical descriptive techniques, reporting like BI reporting techniques to try and get the essence of a problem and communicate that information to either stakeholders or senior executives. Whereas data scientists typically are more prescriptive, is using modeling techniques such as machine learning on, how can we predict something and prescribe a course of action. So to do that, you need to have a deeper understanding of the data. I mean, both have to have a good understanding of the business domain. I think to do that effectively, you do need to go a little bit deeper into the business domain as well.
That's right.
And there is some crossover there because they also have to do the descriptive part and understand data. But in general, the data scientists will have to go deeper into the data and do more querying and a bit more hands-on, more low-level, rather than using applications that are more related to with certain GUI interfaces that make it a bit easier to merge data sets and do that. They won't necessarily need to understand things at a deeper level, whereas the data scientist normally has to really get their hands dirty and really delve into the data, where it comes from, what it represents, and then beyond. To do that, they often have to have stronger coding skills. So they will have to understand SQL and R and Python and all the latest machine learning techniques and libraries and how to implement them. And they'll often also, more often than not, focus on production level development of some of these techniques, whereas analysts in the broad sense normally don't have to do that. But it does vary. Like the work I did as a quantitative analyst would very much be what you'd call a data scientist or data engineer these days. But that varies. There are some that don't have to do that level of, intense code development and productionization of their coding. Those elements are probably the ones that would best describe the difference. So it's more around, descriptive versus predictive and prescriptive. I think that for most people will give them an idea of the essence. But there are some incredible and valuable roles you can do as an analyst. I don't want people thinking you have to be a data scientist. You don't have to at all. It really depends on what your passion is and where your skills lie. You can do some incredible work as an analyst.
That's right. And different companies, I think, prefer this different kind of like title as well. Sometimes they just put the title as a data analyst, but then the job is very deep learning, machine learning, and
exactly.
Yeah, which is very interesting. So how is the demand of each here in Australia?
So from what I've seen globally and nationally, is data science has been growing. There's been much more hype around it, as we both know, in the industry. And there has been an actual increasing need as more organizations realize the benefit of a data-driven decision-making paradigm within their organization. So they've seen that there's benefit to be gained from the vast amounts of data that they're generating and storing and utilizing every day. And they also know that in some domains you need to have deep knowledge to be able to extract value from that data. So that's when data scientists tend to step in and try and help the organization meet those strategic needs. So overall, I'd say in the broader analytics space, including data science, there has been growth, and there will be continued growth in the next few years. I don't see that abating at all. What COVID has done is, I think, made people more aware of the importance of data and moving to a data rich decision-making environment. There may be some organizations that have become a bit more lean in that regard because of budgetary constraints in some industries. But overall, I think the industry for analysts and data scientists is looking very promising. I think job growth will just continue to grow, especially as people realize the ability to automate some of their decisions and some of their processes, and needing data scientists, analysts, and software engineers to help make that happen. Yeah.
So Alex, if someone is in Australia with no local experience and looking for the job and is really keen to be a data scientist, are they able to find any volunteer job here in Australia?
I don't think local experience is as important, though, as transferable skills that the candidate can bring to an organisation. So I think if they make it clear and articulate well enough in their CV, and maybe have like a Git repo where they can show some of the previous work that they've done, examples, they can easily advocate to the potential employer what they bring to the table and what they can do for them. So there is some, of course, merit in having local experience in certain domains. It helps, especially in the government sector, where you want to show you understand how all the processes and governance work. However, if you have strong technical skills and experience in related areas, there are many opportunities that I think will be open up to, especially considering the growth in the industry in Australia. So I think being able to articulate clearly what skills you bring is very important. Mm-hmm. And also just keeping an eye out on where most of the jobs are advertised is still worth looking into, not just assuming you'll need volunteer or internships, but actually applying for jobs and trying to get some feedback, getting your name out there. So things like Seek It's a famous job portal, and you can search for jobs. On the government side, it's apsjobs.gov.au. But you need to be aware there that if you're new to the country, not a citizen, it'll be difficult to get a job, given that most of those roles need a clearance, and to get a clearance, you need a citizenship. But there are variations to that, especially at the state level versus federal level, but still worth looking into. Beyond that, I think it's worth speaking to some recruiters who can help you either look for roles or intern placements or volunteer opportunities. And beyond that, it's, I guess, having mentors and having a strong network, building a network where people can try and get you opportunities. People in academia who can hopefully get internships for students and recent graduates, and just people in industry across both public and private sector who can help people find placements. People who, join people who may need someone temporarily, and then have someone that they know that can fill that void and has the required skills to assist on a short-term basis, either paid or unpaid, whatever the case is. It's up to the two individuals to decide. But I think that really helps you connect with the right people and build a profile for yourself, and try and make that profile clear on your CV, on LinkedIn and through Git, where you may want to post some projects you've done and make it obvious to people that you're really passionate about learning and sharing your experience.
That's right. And does it help them if they do some kind of like self-learning courses on LinkedIn or some other website as well to add it to their resume? Is that helpful?
It's helpful. I think it's much more helpful for the individual in learning their skills. Some employers will take note of that, but they're not going to put as much weight on that as formal academic qualifications, especially in a competitive environment. I think it's more to help you understand certain techniques at a deeper level, and to help you stay in touch with what are the new advancements, and just have some familiarity, and just to practice, to be hands-on. If you don't have a current role that lets you use some of those techniques, it is a fantastic way to bolster your skills and to just keep active. So I strongly recommend it for people, but don't necessarily expect that it'll help land a role directly. It mainly tells the potential employer that you're keen to learn and to practice, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, that's true. Awesome. Thank you very much, Alex. Lots of great information that you shared. Is there any tip or advice that you're going to add at the end for those who are fresh graduated from university and looking for the job, or those who immigrated to Australia and they are very passionate, they want to be a data analyst or data scientist, but of course they don't have any local experience? So what is your tip or advice for them to achieve?
Sure. I think it's worth having a good LinkedIn profile these days. It is very important, because when you apply for roles, many employers will first go there just to have an idea of what you've done, where you've worked, what your aspirations are. And then also through that, it's really a great way to build a network, and also really a great way to connect to people who maybe are doing things that you want to do or have a career that maybe how you want to build your career. So having a chance to follow people who can share their insights and teach you more about the local industry or the local domain that they work in, I think is a fantastic way to gain this knowledge for free. And then through that, you can also meet mentors, build your own network, and look for new opportunities. It's also important in the broad analytics space to show that you have a deep understanding of the technical side, rather than someone who's just done some courses online, which everyone's doing these days. It's how do you differentiate yourself from these people? How can you show that you understand some of these machine learning techniques at a deeper level, where you can make the connections between the mathematics and statistics that govern them, and also the coding side? How do you actually implement it? The linear algebra, the matrix multiplication, how does it actually work under the hood? You don't have to be able to develop it on your own, obviously, but just understanding how it works, having a good conceptual, intuitive understanding, and knowing what its limitations are, what are the pros and cons versus other techniques. But yeah, this notion around mentoring and networking, I think people don't realize is how important they can be especially if you move from another industry or another country. That's how I think you can really build a solid career, is having other people who are willing to support you, connect you to the right people, to the right roles, and try and guide you on that journey and help you determine what do you actually want to do. Do you want to be a data scientist? Do you want to be a data engineer? Do you want to be an intelligent analyst or a reporting analyst or a quant? It's not always easy for you to determine that yourself, but being able to talk to people who have been in similar situations and connect you to to others who are asking similar things is important. I think it can be really beneficial. And also identifying maybe local meetups and other communities where you can get together with like-minded people and learn from them, network once again, share your insights, your stories, and just feel like you're part of a community that is growing together. I think that is really helpful to keep people positive and to just help out other people when you get a chance to as well. I think that's really what it's all about, isn't it? Just helping one another. And it's a great community that we have in Australia. Really proud to be part of it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Thank you, Alex. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for sharing all your information with us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for today. Okay, guys, hope you enjoyed watching the conversation. Please comment below if you have any questions. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want me to provide more videos like this for you. Thank you.